Okay, let's go ahead. We'll get started. We may have some people trickle in. So this is our career chat on careers in sports. And we're very lucky to have two distinguished former center students joining us. We have Alan George, who works in sports communications at Stanford. And then we have Molly Alvey, who is the head volleyball coach at the University of Cincinnati. And what we're going to do is just have them tell a little bit each briefly about their career path up to this point, and then give us any tips or suggestions that stand out for them about how to possibly break into a career in sports. And then we'll open it up for questions and answers that you guys might have. So I think we decided Molly would kick us off.
Great. Thanks, Kurt. All right, so everybody is pretty interested in just being in college athletics in general. Is anybody, coaching, or does anybody have any specific type avenues you're thinking about?
Yeah, I've been coaching with the Center's football team for the past 3 years now, so I guess coaching is what I've been looking to do.
Okay, cool. Anybody else non-coaching related? What are you thinking about?
Communications and like a sports information director position would be very desirable in the next few years.
Okay, perfect. I think the good combo to have Alan and I both here is, obviously my position would work very closely with his position, but two completely different takes on the different, kind of facets of college athletics, and there's so much more to it. So I think it's a good mixture for you guys to have, and I think Alan would agree with me too. We'll give you the background, and as many questions as you guys have will probably be more beneficial to you because there's so much that we could talk about. I'd really like to answer, kind of your personal questions or personal interests because there's so much that really goes into it. It's pretty interesting, and there's some really, if you're involved with athletics, you guys know there's some really cool things about athletics and just how much it evolves. College athletics are constantly evolving. There's never any stagnant time. You're constantly keeping up with the time. You're constantly keeping up with students, obviously, social media. It's just a really cool profession to be in. So anyway, I graduated from Center in 2001. I'm from Louisville, Kentucky. I went to Mercy and came up to Center. I played volleyball and basketball at Center. Graduated in 2001. I got my undergrad in economics, and then I left to go to Temple up in Philly to get my MBA in international business administration. So for some reason, I thought I was going to go conquer the international world, I think. And I really had my mindset, all business, and that's all I really wanted to do. And I took a graduate assistant spot. So basically they gave me money towards my graduate school, and coaching was my job. So I coached with my boss up there and did my MBA in the evenings. And that's typically how most master's programs are. It's 1 day a week for 2 or 3 hours that you would work on getting your master's. So I did that for 3 years, got to the end, no job was waiting for me that I wanted. As far as the business route, it just wasn't really what I expected. So I actually kind of got, luckily stepped into the coaching role. I was pretty much a full-time coach there with my graduate assistantship. Everything's different, at every school, but this one was pretty much a full-time job. And I did not have a business job after 3 years. There was nothing that I really wanted or interested me in. A head coaching job at University of Southern Indiana, which is over in Evansville, is a Division II school, was looking for a head coach. So I took a head coaching job there. I was only there for a year, and then, I loved it. I absolutely fell in love with it. I think there's nothing like being around young people, being in college athletics, the competitive side of things. I did have to teach there, so I taught classes and coached. I had physical ed classes I had to teach, and I had a volleyball course that I had to teach. Then Ole Miss called, wanted me to come interview there and wanted me for that job there. So I left the head coaching job at the Division II school for the assistant coaching job at Ole Miss because it was SEC. So you're looking at, every job move that I tried to make, I really tried to look at what's going to advance my career as far as how can I get to the highest possible level of coaching and eventually get to a place where I could be competing for national championships. So even though I left a head coaching job, I was taking an assistant job in one of the top conferences in the country, obviously, and just difference in money, responsibility, just a lot of different things. So I went to Ole Miss for 5 years and was the associate head coach for the last 2 years that I was there. I left Ole Miss for the University of Houston, so I took a head coaching job. I felt like that was the next best step. It was a new, young athletic director there, kind of up-and-coming name, a hot name in the athletic world, and tons of recruiting for coaching. I mean, the main things you're looking at is opportunity to recruit. It's hard to go somewhere where you can't recruit, so how are you going to get the players that you need to that university to play? And I think, strength of conference and really your national visibility. And that's a big thing when it comes to the level of play that you want to be at. So I left Ole Miss, went to Houston. I was just at Houston for 2 years. I really thought I'd be there for a lot longer, but then Cincinnati called, and it's an hour and 20 minutes from home and top 30 program in the country in the Big East at the time. And it was kind of a no-brainer for me. So I left Houston, and then this month will be my 4th year at Cincinnati. So kind of, a lot of transition and building a program here. It's every single scenario has been very different. It's interesting kind of what I thought would happen at each university or how long I thought I would be there has been completely different to how it's actually panned out. And I think all in a good way, but each place has been very different. So that's the path I've taken here at Cincinnati now. Love being close to home and love being at this level and the visibility of, the University of Cincinnati has. So it's been really, really an interesting path. But now I've been down in the South for a while, so it's kind of nice to be home, though I could do without snow, for sure.
You're up, Alan.
Yeah, we get to pick and choose when we get to see snow out here. I'm going to go to Tahoe this weekend and see snow for the first time in about a year. But I grew up in Lebanon, Kentucky, just right down the road from Center, and played football there for 2 years. Studied abroad in Mexico. Had a great time at Center. I was president of the Deeks when we got kicked off campus, so that's one of fame right there. We got back on, and I think we're good right now. I graduated Center. I was an econ major. I knew I was going to go to graduate school at Western Kentucky. So I spent that summer working for the Lexington Legends. I was an operations intern with them there. And we had nickel hot dog night on Tuesdays, and I would have to put on a hot dog costume and stand on the corner of Nicholasville Road, waving a sign, getting people to come to the games. And one guy stopped at a stoplight, and we started talking, and ends up he was a sports information director at Western Kentucky. I told him I was going to school there, and he offered me a graduate assistantship to work in the sports info office. And so I kind of credit wearing a hot dog costume to get me where I am right now. I went to Western Kentucky, was there for 2 years, served as a primary sports contact on the media side of things for their softball and swimming and diving teams. Then after 2 years there was a job opening at Notre Dame for an internship. I grew up a Notre Dame fan. I watched the movie Rudy every day. I even proposed to my then fiance at the bench at Notre Dame where Rudy opens up the letter and finds out that he goes to Notre Dame. So I'm, Notre Dame through and through. So they had an opening. That was the only job that I wanted. I figured if I don't get that job at Notre Dame, I'm not going to work in sports. Like, that's the job that I want. So I just put everything into it. Got the job at Notre Dame. I was working in their sports information office for 1 year as a full-time intern. Got on full-time after that. Stayed for 4 more years. Served as a media contact for their volleyball, swimming, and diving, softball teams. Helped out with football. Did all the social media for the football team during my time there. So, and got to work with the likes of Charlie Weiss, who transitioned with Brian Kelly, Manti Te'o, Brady Quinn. So a few good years there in South Bend. And the only place I would ever leave Notre Dame for, I always told myself, was Stanford. So when Stanford had an opening back in 2012, packed my bags, literally just packed my car, put my clothes in there, my golf clubs in there, drove out to Stanford, started working before the 2012 season. Stanford went to the Rose Bowl that year. They went the next year, had a little down season last year, and then won the Rose Bowl this year. I've gotten to work with some great student athletes on the football team, on the golf team, swimming and diving teams. In my role right now, I work primarily with football on the media side, but also oversee our office and all 36 varsity sports that we have here at Stanford. So, we get to put together the Heisman campaign for Christian McCaffrey. We get to promote world-class student athletes who are not only excelling on the field, but they're doing stem cell research, and they're finding cures for cancer, and they're 19 years old and they have their startup and they're worth $55 million right now, just working out of their dorm room. But we have to handle the media influx coming in and balance their academics, their athletics, and also the whole media PR side of that. I never wanted to live in a place bigger than Lebanon, Kentucky, which is about 6,000 people. I thought Danville was huge. I thought that South Bend was huge. I thought Bowling Green was huge. And now I'm out in the Bay Area where there are millions of people. And I miss the South all the time. I miss Senator College. I miss Kentucky. I miss having sweet tea and fried foods. But living in the Bay Area, it's the sweetest place in North America. It's 72 degrees every day. I play golf every morning. I play golf most every evening. We're a couple hours from Tampa, from Tahoe. We're 45 minutes from the beach. We're right down the road from Pebble Beach and Carmel. It's the sweetest spot around. So I'm very lucky to be out here. I never thought that my career or my life would bring me to this point, but after being here, I wouldn't have it any other way.
I think, Alan, it's probably one of the most important pieces as far as college athletics. It's there's certain times of year where you have absolutely zero flexibility with your time. When I'm in season, there's absolutely nothing outside of my 7 days a week that revolve around my team. There's just no time for it, and constantly traveling, practicing, hosting opponents. But there are some benefits that the students do go home, and there is some downtime. There's some time that we are not allowed to be out on the road recruiting. There's time in the off season that we can be a whole lot more flexible with our schedules and kind of cater your own schedule. And I think that's one of the college athletic world is so demanding and so fast paced. There really is a benefit to, some areas of it, some are going to be a little bit different, to kind of balancing a little bit of life, work, in your day-to-day schedules. And I think that is one of the bonuses, to be able to have the flexibility to go out and golf and enjoy your time on those times that you can be flexible. It's kind of a neat little perk to it. Though, but when you're in season and it's your time, there's zero downtime. So it's an interesting shift.
Yeah, when we're in season, it's 7 days a week. You'll work 12, 14, 16, 18-hour days. But the grind is what keeps you going. It's fun. It's competitive. It's what you live for. You don't work to lose. You work to win, and you work to get your program at the peak of whatever level you're on. So yeah, when you're grinding, it's a fun grind. It doesn't feel like work. Like half the time that I'm working, I'm sitting in a press box on the 50-yard line watching a top 5 football matchup. This past week, I was at Levi Stadium, working the Super Bowl. I've worked PGA championships and Final Fours, and you're watching sports. I tell people that I haven't worked a day in my life. I've pretty much watched sports for a living.
What are your all's majors? Or what do you think your major is going to be if you don't know yet?
English.
Neuroscience.
Econ.
Yeah, econ.
Econs. History.
Yeah.
Business.
Business.
Yeah.
Neuroscience is that center? I didn't know that.
Yeah, behavioral neuroscience, yeah.
Cool. I personally, from my experience, don't really think it matters, and the business for college athletics. I'm econ and, like I said, international business. We have one foreign kid on our team. My international business degree hasn't really done a lot with talking to her in French, But I think it's networking, the college athletic scene, even though it seems so massive once you get into the niche, it really is incredibly small. And I think as many contacts as you can make, as many people as you can reach out and network to. And Alan and I just got on here and in the first 5 minutes of talking, he knows the sports information person. That's my direct contact here at UC. And his cousin plays volleyball at Louisville. So I've played her for the last 4 years of her career. And it's just amazing. You know, he's on the West Coast, I'm here. How many connections there are to college athletics. And I think that's your way in to finding opportunities, to be honest. It's kind of a small world when you look at the big picture of things. And the more you can network and get your name out, I think there's no necessarily easy route in. You got to start from the bottom. You know, everybody has to grind from the beginning. And both of us had similar stories in having to take the graduate assistant spots. I mean, I took out a loan for my graduate assistant. It was like, hey, we'll pay you to come work for us. And here I am $8,000 later after 3 years of having to help pay for, you know, the housing and living and all that. But it's so worth it, you know. And I think it's not just necessarily something that you step into. It is a grind, and network as much as you can. And we probably all could, at least from the coaching side, Alan, you might agree with this too, could benefit from a psychology degree. I know that would help all of us. But other than that, I think, you know, you're looking at a business. Basically, you're looking at a business in college athletics. So you have from my perspective, your recruiting, your sales. My athletes are kind of like my employees. You know, they have so many things that they have to accomplish and standards they have to meet in order for the production that comes out, you know. Sales, marketing, the information stuff that Alan's doing, all of that stuff is really kind of a business aspect. But then when you combine it, you're looking at basically business plus family. It is not a 9-to-5 job. You know, when I leave the office, sometimes it's 10 o'clock at night. Sometimes it might be 3 o'clock in the afternoon, but I'm always on call, especially with my players. And I think, like I talked about before, just how college athletics is constantly evolving. You are kind of on call. I mean, it wouldn't be unusual for my sports info person to call me at 6 o'clock at night, 7 o'clock at night and say, hey, I have this idea. Let's get it out. So it kind of takes all different kinds of people. So I was just curious about the degrees. I don't think it matters. You know, history, neuroscience doesn't matter. If you have a passion for it, there's a place for you in college athletics, I think.
Yeah, I was also an econ major, and I hated writing. I hated everything about the writing side, and now that's pretty much, you know, a big component of what I do for a living. And it took me several years to kind of realize that, like, me getting the econ degree, it maybe doesn't apply to exactly what I'm doing right now, but more importantly, during my whole 4 years at Center, it was just teaching me how to think and how to learn. And so a lot of the ways that I solve problems while earning that econ degree, I use those same principles in, you know, problem solving and analytics and what I do right now. So, you know, same with Molly. Maybe an econ degree isn't going to help her when it's, you know, 14-14 in the fifth set and she has to draw up this play, you know, to break serve. Like, yeah, econ degree may not work, you know, too well right there, but at least some of the principles that she was going through when she was learning and studying at Center and learning how to, learning how to think and problem solve. You know, that's what you can use, whether it's history or psychology or, you know, neuroscience. Those are the things that you'll take with you when you're working in the sports world. When I was at Center, I took a ton of classes from Dr. Anderson and Dr. Johnson. Dr. Johnson had a lot of really great sports classes. I don't know if he still teaches. I think it's like econometrics of sports or something of the sort there. But as much as you can pick the brains of those people who kind of dipped their foot in the sports world. I know, you know, Brad Fields and Andrew Gavin spent a number of years in sports, or still working in sports. As much as you can kind of pick their brains and kind of dip into their networks, you're going to go places with that.
What interests you guys? Is there anything in particular that's of interest? And I think it can be as specific as you want, or if it's broad, but what type of things did you come to hear about today?
I'm looking into the sort of development side of athletics and the fundraising, like the managing of like boosters and things like that. I think that kind of stuff is what I'm most interested in athletics. But I kind of came to hear about general stuff too.
Yeah. All right. I mean, development is huge on all fronts. So one thing, you know, obviously the University of Cincinnati loves the American Athletic Conference, right? And we're a part of it, but I think it's one of those things that's sort of well known that there's some opportunities that might present itself to us or other universities across the country to look at other conferences. I think that's sort of a well-known fact, but one of our biggest things is, hey, what are we doing development? What are we doing to continue regardless of where we end up? Because we always want to compete for championships. How are we continuing to build our funds to grow our programs? And I mean, the opportunities are endless. And you look at a place like this, I think we're the 7th TV market in the country, which is one of the big pieces behind Cincinnati as far as promotions and stuff like that. We just did a massive project with our football stadium. Our football stadium is the 4th oldest football stadium in the country. And I mean, it's right in the middle of campus. So we just did a huge addition onto it. And it's okay, how much development can we get out of our box seats, out of our luge seatings, out of our premier seats, where we're engaging our donors and kind of looking at who we already have, but who else can we reach out to? And we're about to do a massive project with our basketball arena too. So you're looking at major gifts in that type of area. Then you're also looking at, okay, well, how are we going to raise for volleyball separately? How are we going to raise for women's sports? We have a women's sports fund. How are we going to just sell tickets? How do we reach out from, you don't think as much about it, but our students here are another piece to that development. I think the development side is really cool. There's so many aspects to how big or small and all the pieces fit together. You can't just go nickel and dime every single person that gives you $500 a year, but who can give you $250,000 a year. Our development pieces, the athletic director that we just hired, actually his background is big in that, and one of his it's kind of I think one of the reasons that we brought him on, just his ability to get out and connect and network and bring people into the university for that.
Yeah, you're seeing more and more athletic directors getting hired. They all have that development background. If you can talk to people, if you can carry a conversation, if you're not afraid to ask for money, I think that's where you can really cut your teeth in college athletics and move up the chain pretty quickly. A lot of development offices are relatively young. They're just up and comers who will grind and they move up quickly, and they'll bounce from maybe school to school. But development is a good ticket inside college athletics.
And everything about college athletics is driven by money these days. So you're picking the right area if you're good at it. What else? What are the other interests?
Can you talk a little bit about the process you went through to become a GA, and like maybe some advice you would share for someone who's trying to do something similar, like do's and don'ts?
I would say for you right now, just volunteer for everything. Reach out to University of Kentucky, Eastern Kentucky, Lexington Legends, University of Louisville. Reach out to the Danville City Park Systems. John Drake, who runs Danville Parks, that's who I started with. I was umpiring baseball, refereeing basketball for him on Saturdays and Sundays. There are so many schools and organizations around the Louisville area. Churchill Downs, Keeneland. Just ask to volunteer, and whether it's taking tickets or whether it's passing out stats or whether it's coming up for one day and making copies before a home basketball game. If you volunteer for anything and everything, people will start to notice your work ethic, whether you're on time, how you dress, how well you're groomed, and then when they have openings in their office, you'll be first in line for that. Also, it looks great on a resume. As many events that you can volunteer for, just do anything and everything right now.
Yeah, and I think the earlier the better, and you got to let people know, or I think I tell my student athletes that all the time. They want GA spots, and it's, they wait till end of senior year or the end of their fall semester of senior year. And sometimes people are already, typically they're 2-year positions for the most part. So a coach or a head of a department already kind of knows their timeline for when they're looking for people. So the earlier the better. And I think if you have an opportunity to get in, just get in. There doesn't, if it is like we mentioned the development earlier, maybe the ticket office has a spot, or maybe Sports Info has a spot, but I would say get your foot in the door, because once you get in there, then to get your name known, to get, just to show the work ethic, there will be other opportunities that present itself of that networking. I think if you narrow it too small, it may be a little bit difficult sometimes, but I would let as many people know as possible. And I think the volunteering is a great idea.
But you have to know when you're going into development, if you want to volunteer for that, the first 3 months, you're going to be stuffing envelopes and you're going to be making name tags. But you better be the best name tag maker and the best envelope stuffer that you can be, because doing that well is what's going to get you that full-time job.
Right.
Has anyone there worked in sports or had an internship with a area team or taken any classes that kind of pertains to athletics or sports right now?
I'm currently working with the football team this semester for academic credit as an internship, and be helping with the coaching side and working with the players and all the background stuff.
I would keep track of all that stuff. When I don't know about you, but I would get that stuff on your resume now. Think about everything that you're doing with the team now. It may seem insignificant to you because it's a day-to-day thing, but that's some pretty good experience that you're working with the football team. You have that contact with the players. I would somehow find a way to quantify that. Hey, I was in charge of making sure all academics were accounted for 30 of our football players, or of this position group, or whatever you're responsible for, and kind of get that stuff on your resume, because not everybody has those opportunities, and those are perfect things to show, experience in the department. What else? Somebody else was going to say something. Sorry about that.
Oh yeah, I've been coaching for about 3 years now. I've actually been a positions coach for 2 years of that. Just with the football team here.
Yeah, perfect. I'd put all that down. And think just to have the, if it isn't coaching and you want to go into one of the other aspects, just being a part of an athletic department, you're going to be aware of everything that's going on and understand how certain pieces work together. So I think if your expertise, so to speak, right now is in one area, that's okay. Put that on your resume, because just to have that experience in the athletic department, I think is really important.
Yeah, we'd have people who only work game days for us, and they would make copies and they would, run the stats. But just the fact that they had Notre Dame on their resume, or they had Stanford, or they had Western Kentucky, that's what gave them a foot up over someone else going for a full-time job.
Any other questions?
How many jobs did you apply for coming out of school, and when did you do that? I guess to clarify, I have a pretty a rough draft resume right now, and I've sent it to a few different schools. But I guess I'm talking more to Alan. How many schools did you send your resume to, just coming out of college?
Yeah, so probably spring of my senior year. I was searching for anything in sports, and I probably applied to 5 to 10 jobs. But there were jobs I had no idea what they were doing. All I saw was sports, and so I just sent my resume and said, I'm going to graduate from center. I should probably be making $40,000-$50,000 my first year out. I'm going to go for this job. And it was kind of a harsh reality, thinking that I have to work my way up there. So I probably applied to 5 to 10, and then it was later that spring I decided that graduate school was going to be the route for me, and I thought that would position myself better to get a full-time job. So I only applied to one graduate school, that was Western Kentucky, and then when I was looking for jobs out of graduate school, the only job that I applied for was the one at Notre Dame. A lot of my other friends were applying to dozens of jobs in the sports world. They struck out on all of them. They ended up going into, finance and business and so forth. And when you get out of school, very few people will go into athletics, but a lot of your friends maybe moving to New York or, Louisville or Nashville, working finance and making some pretty good money. And you may not be making as much, and you may be grinding a bit harder, but each one of your friends who are making those great salaries and working 18 hours a day, they all wish that they were working in sports. Like they all wish that they were doing what you're doing. And that's something that you kind of learn pretty quickly. Once they see where you're going and who you're working with, and you're working in sports, and you show up and you're wearing championship rings and swag and whatever else. Like that's what most people miss out on. And they kind of don't have as much fun in some of those jobs as you would have in athletics. Not that it's all about having fun. You gotta have some fun when you're out there, making a dollar.
What graduate degree did you get at Western Kentucky?
I was there the first year they started their sport administration program. I think it may have been like sport and recreational administration. But there are similar programs, I believe, in the area, like at Louisville, Eastern Kentucky. Xavier may have something.
Cincinnati.
Yeah, Cincinnati. I'd called the University of Louisville inquiring about their program, and they said my GPA was too low to get in. I was like, look, this is a center GPA. You have to scale it a bit for me. But I was pretty set on going to Western. It was a small program, up and coming, but throughout the nation there are some really good sport administration programs. A lot of programs where you can get a master's in sport administration and an MBA in 2.5, 3 years. So those are definitely some options that you want to look into. I think Texas has a good program. Tennessee has a good program. University of San Francisco has a really good sport administration program as well.
I have a question for you, Alan. I don't know if how much you've been a part of hiring process or anything like that. Is it in your area, is it required or is it suggested or recommended that you have higher than just an undergrad degree?
It's usually preferred. Graduate degrees are usually preferred, but we would take experience over education.
Okay.
Yeah.
I know for most of the head coaching positions that are posted, it usually says graduate degree preferred as well. I think just by nature of being and the degree is the ultimate goal of the student athletes. Always looking at education, but that's just something for you guys to think about. I know as a head coach, it's usually posted on every single job opening that a graduate degree is preferred. On the assistant coaching, it's not always listed, but I do think it gives you a leg up for sure. I just didn't know in the other areas what the trend was.
Yeah. So how many of you all want to work in maybe college athletics or professional, or who doesn't know, or who kind of has some type of idea of the path that they want to go down besides development and neuroscience?
I've been doing some sports writing for Kentucky Sports Radio and covering the baseball team for a few springs and getting to go to games with the media passes. So I think I'm going to try to go the sports journalism route and go to grad school and try to get more opportunities covering other events and write publications.
Very good. You enjoy working for KSR?
Yeah, I do like it quite a bit.
Nice.
I'm interested in sports event management, operations, that side of things.
I've been in the process of trying to, just like you said, Molly, is kind of get in touch with all your contacts. I've been trying to get in touch with quite a few people, trying to get a GA position, try and come in and coach, start my coaching career that way.
Perfect route.
I'd kind of like to go the SID route. I'm interning currently with Liam Halferty, who's a SID here. And, he's got me doing everything from taking stats and managing social media accounts, so sort of that route.
everything that you all mentioned, even though everybody had something different to say, it's really, I think, critical that you're, I don't know if up to date is the word, but really in tune to social media, current trends, from facilities operations to the writing to coaching, basically, if you don't keep up with the times, you're out of the loop. It changes so quickly with college athletics, and basically from the coaching standpoint, it's all about recruiting. You don't get the right players in, you're not going to be very successful. So how do you relate to those players? How do you stay in tune to what's current with them? How do you stay in tune to current social media trends? Even from marketing, facilities operations, it's the same thing. You got to get butts in the seats. Well, if you're not staying in tune or you're doing the same old thing every year, how are you being creative and getting people out? Same with the writing. And, our sports info person doesn't just write, and I'm sure Alan doesn't either, but she's really involved with all of our social media aspects. And it's always evolving, and I think it's really important for every single piece. You have to be in tune to who your audience is, whether that's your recruiting base or your fans or your donors or whoever, of staying fresh. It's really critical. And think coming in on the young end, you guys should have an edge on that. You know exactly what people your age are looking for as far as the recruiting. The current, even like current music, current trends, those sort of things are the things that have to stay up tempo, upbeat in the world of college athletics.
Yeah, the coolest thing that happened to us was yesterday we found out that you can now manage multiple accounts on Instagram. So it's pretty
The SIT here is pretty pumped about that too, because he has to manage like the basketball one and the football one and all of it. So,
yeah. I follow almost all the accounts at Center on Instagram and Twitter and Facebook, and I really enjoy all those.
Yeah.
How long have you been putting up the center scores at the Stanford games? Since you've been there?
Yes. So we started that at Notre Dame. We would always announce the center college scores in the press box at Notre Dame.
Nice.
And then at Stanford, they have a huge, it's like a little whiteboard, and we have all the scores from every school across the nation, and we always have the center score on there. And our internal PA at the end of the third quarter will always announce the center college score, and it'll give a breakdown of kind of who did what in their conference standings and who's up next. And we've been doing this since the first week I got here, so for the past 4 seasons. And now when all these national media come in, whether it's Pete Thamel or Ivan Mizell or Pat Forty, all these national writers, they'll kind of get up and kind of start clapping whenever they hear the center college. And then I'll see them, on the road on a game here or there, and they'll say, "Hey, I heard that center beat Swanee this past week." So it's people love it out here.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
We appreciate it.
I appreciate you all winning. That helps out quite a bit.
I have a question for you guys. What's the pressure like? Because you guys are both at D1 schools, and I would think that could play into it. You probably need a certain kind of personality, or is the job security fairly good? I know you would have to do your job well, but you hear about a lot of competition and pressure with all the money in college sports. How does that affect your job? Or does it not?
Go ahead, Alan.
I'd say that a lot of the pressure in my field, with social media out there, like my job can change in 5 seconds. Like if Christian McCaffrey gets on Twitter and he starts ranting about Peyton Manning or Cam Newton or something controversial, I'm out the door right now. Working with him and working with our football coach, and by the end of today, maybe somehow that's on me and I don't have a job. But that's kind of a extreme circumstance. But I guess with social media and the way that things are going today with the media in general, you don't know what's going to happen next. So you really have to be on top of your game. You have to be very proactive with the way you deal with the media on the local and on the regional and the national levels. I mean, it's changing all the time. And if you don't keep up with it, it's going to pass you by. So when you have, a student athlete, getting a DUI or a student athlete getting in trouble for, X, Y, or Z, if you don't handle it right, then that looks bad on your office, on your department, on your university. And, the university doesn't want, that type of bad pub. So if it happens over and over, you might be out the door.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's increased over the last, I just finished my 15th year of season, and volleyball has completely changed 15 years ago until now. And, people invest money in it and put a ton of money into your program, facilities, whatever it is, then there is that expectation of win-loss. And, I don't know what the nature is about college athletics. Like, you look at Les Miles, and it's like, well, whose opinion was it that Les Miles needed to go? He's one of the most successful college coaches in the country, and all of a sudden some outsiders are giving opinions, regardless, donors, whoever, of giving their opinion to this coach that they're not at his practice on a day-to-day basis. They're not in his office. They're not at his staff meetings. They have nothing to do with the program, but you look at how vocal people are about college athletics because of the media. We're on TV, the players are interviewed, newspaper, all that sort of stuff. I think there is a lot of pressure with that. And, you don't have, no one's calling up your accountant and saying, or posting on a message board somewhere about how terrible your accountant is and they didn't get their paperwork done by tax day, but everyone has an opinion about college athletics and they're not even involved. I think that's the unique experience to it. And from a coaching standpoint, I think there's a lot of pressure on the players too. You have 18-year-old players that can really take a beating in the media, and they're just young adults that are competing and playing a sport. So I think the pressure can really be seen on those high-profile athletes or even high-profile sports in general. I think there's and with the growth of social media, it's like, gosh, it's everywhere. You can go see an opinion about yourself anywhere in social media. And I think that is a different side of the pressure outside of maybe the win-loss or contract renewals or, how much money making or difference between being fired or whatnot. I think there are a lot of pressures as there's visibility, everybody's in the know. So it's tough. And it's probably different from sport to sport. Obviously men's basketball and football are going to have a higher level of pressure. There's a lot more money in it, a lot more visibility, like we said, from the media. But you could also look, maybe there's a difference too for UConn's women's basketball team. They're going to be a high-profile sport within women's basketball. So yeah, I guess that's a good question, Kurt, because it's a little bit across the board there, and probably different at different institutions. The volleyball coach at Stanford probably going to be held to a really high standard. That's a national championship program or a Final Four team, versus looking at another program like West Virginia just getting started into the Big 12, which is a completely different transformation. And you're taking a different conference, throwing it into one of the best volleyball conferences in the country. So it varies. But it's definitely, with the social availability, very intense.
What classes are you all taking center term? Or is it still center term, or is spring started yet?
Started. Took a class called Superheroes, though.
Nice.
Superheroes, as you can imagine.
Did anybody go abroad over center term?
We didn't go abroad.
I went abroad in Hawaii. Does that count?
Sure.
There all month.
Nice.
Legit.
To finish up, could you guys each tell us what you like best about your position and what you like least? To keep it real.
Yeah. I really bought into the whole notion of being a student athlete when I was at center, playing football there. And I always knew that I wanted to work at an institution that put a priority on academics. And the best part of my day and my job is working with the great student athletes. I mean, that sounds pretty cliche, but like, I really am working with great student athletes, and these are people that, you know, I respect and, I look up to, and I want my kids to grow up to idolize people like, you know, Mark Appel or Patrick Rogers or, you know, Andrew Luck or Zach Ertz. Just the things that they're doing on and off the field, coming back from the NFL and earning their degrees and, going to med school and, just seeing what they put in day in and day out is really motivating to me. Like that's the most rewarding part of my job is seeing them excel on the field and then going into the real world and making big things happen.
Yeah, no doubt, student athletes. I mean, for me, that's it. This profession is, like I said before, you're running a business, but you're a family, and you travel together half the year. You're eating all your meals together half the year. There's no downtime with that, and everybody really becomes your family, even your staff. But I think, the student athletes are what makes the job. It's just, it's fun. And, as the longer you stay into it, and I feel like I'm still fairly young in the profession for sure, it keeps you young, you just kind of stay in tune with current trends and what's going on with the world, and you get to see young people grow up. And I honestly believe there's probably nothing better as far as preparation of getting into the real world than college athletics. I mean, it teaches you everything. It's either, you learn the responsibility, you learn time management, you learn how to work with others. You have to do it in order to be successful, or you won't be able to function in college athletics. So I think what it teaches young people is just incredible. I think, a drawback, I do think you can be over consumed with it, that, I could stay in the office every night till 11 and it wouldn't bother me. I could go out recruiting every opportunity that I have to be out recruiting, but I also don't think that that's healthy. I think you have to have some sort of balance where you can force yourself to step away and take a break, so that competitive, I don't know, you need a little bit of decompression, because it is a lot of competitiveness. It is go, go, go. It is constantly trying to chase down that next recruit or chase down that next trend, win, donor, whatever it is. And if you don't find a balance, you can make yourself crazy, I think, in this profession, because there's always something to do. Always. And like I said, you're always on. There's never really a time where you just get to stop being a coach and go take a break. I mean, I would never go on vacation and not be available to my players. I mean, it's just can't do that. But I think it's tricky to balance that out, because as soon as you stop, you feel like you're missing out. So that's a little bit hard to keep in mind.
My one rule is to keep the cell phone off during supper and when I'm on the golf course. That's my balance right there.
That's good. It takes a lot of restraint, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does.
It's hard.
Any more questions, or you guys? Yeah. Well, thank you. This has been really good.
Awesome. Give Dr. Ralphs a fist pound for me.
If you all need any other, if you have any other specific questions or whatnot, Kurt has my email, and I'm sure Alan feels the same. If you want to email us, please feel free.
Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
What?